One of the most common questions I'm being asked about my black and white street photography is, why on earth did you buy a camera with a monochrome sensor? A camera that can only shoot black and white? Are you nuts? Possibly. I love black and white photography. I was inspired by black and white photography in books and in galleries when I was a teenager. I learned photography shooting on black and white film. With this camera, actually. I still have it. I just love the timeless and introspective qualities black and white gives you. I never felt the need to shoot in color until I started photographing commercially for brands. So you're thinking, why don't you just use a color censored camera like everybody else and convert your files to black and white in post-production? Well, I actually do sometimes, occasionally, just recently actually. I shot some black and white on this big old beast of a camera and the results were fine. A big camera like that is just not practical to spend 12 to 16 hours a day walking around the streets with, whereas a little guy like this one is. A little camera like this, it's small, stealthy, it doesn't stand out, and I can put it in a little camera bag, a little shoulder bag, and that is very convenient. Shooting with a color sensor camera, I find that most people create a black and white image after they've shot a color image and can't make it work. So black and white becomes the afterthought, a way of rescuing a photo. And I see this particularly with landscape photographers, and this is just the wrong way to go about black and white photography. Actually, shooting landscape photos with a monochrome censored camera is pretty cool. I shot these last year. You really have to focus on contrast and shapes and textures. Color wouldn't have helped me say any more, communicate any more with these photos. I think black and white photography in general really helps to enhance mood. Shooting black and white photography on a colored censored camera is actually too easy. You can easily adjust the color channels, and I think that makes you lazy. You just don't look so hard for great light, contrast and stories. This of course is just my opinion, don't get angry. So with a monochrome sensor, you have no choice. You have to really work hard and think more about what you're shooting and how the light's going to work and how the colors are going to translate into gray tones. Your compositional awareness and skills greatly improve. Without color, the emphasis is on emotion and mood, on storytelling. Color often distracts from storytelling, I think, and it certainly can dilute the emotive qualities of photo. I would argue that black and white photography simplifies compositions and makes you more creative. Shooting with a monochrome sensor is definitely harder to do. It's more of a challenge, and I like a challenge. I think that's what makes it more fun. I like relying on my skills rather than digital technology to get a great image. This camera allows me to do that, and I find it so much more rewarding. Now the bonus here is a monochrome sensor without a Bayer filter in front of it gives you a far better, richer tonal range, a better dynamic range to play with. A monochrome sensor captures a lot more light because of that, and you end up with a cleaner, sharper image. There's no color noise or conversion artifacts, so you can shoot at pretty high ISOs and still maintain a very noise-free result. And the noise that you do get when you really push the ISO, and I do that sometimes on purpose, I think looks more like film grain. So I just really love that look. So this camera is a low light beast. I couldn't think of a better camera to use, to be honest. The fixed 28mm lens is all I need. I've never wanted for anything greater. I think the Q series Leicas are better than the M series. That's gonna cause some stirring in the force. I find the old antiquated rangefinder cameras a little bit unpractical, not so user-friendly. And once in a while, I think you need to recalibrate them, and that's just too much messing about. I could be persuaded otherwise though. If Leica wants to lend me one for a few weeks, we can see. Probably the most important point with buying any kind of camera is you've got to feel good about holding it. You've got to want to keep picking it up and using it. And I certainly do with this. I'm quite happy to walk around with it all day long. This camera has a fantastic user experience because it's just so simple. It's like my old film camera. I set the ISO and forget about it, and all I have to do is turn the dial on top for shutter speed and turn the aperture ring and the focus ring. Exactly the same as that one. It's just simple. It's photography in its purest form. It's really solid, really well made, and one of the other things that makes me feel really good about owning it is the fact that it is handmade in Germany out of metal rather than mass produced in a big Chinese factory out of plastic. That's important to me. So, to those of you who asked the question, I hope that answers it. That's why I bought a monochrome censored camera. If you have anything else you'd like to ask or want me to talk about, do let me know. Drop your ideas in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And maybe subscribe while you're doing that. That's a good idea. See ya.